Good evening everyone and welcome to Talking Esports Episode 3. I'm your host, ContactZero, and with me this week is Dom Sacco, who is an esports journalist. Dom started his career in journalism at Auto Trader, which I'm sure everyone has heard of. From there he worked with MTV writing articles about games and the tech industry, and now more recently he's been working for a company called PCR where he where he talks about the PC and tech industry again. And he does this while running a website that covers esports news in the UK. Good to have you here, Dom.
Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, good to be on the show.
Just noticed your camera seems to be a bit frozen, so just give me a second. That's strange. Bear with me, everyone. Right, there we go. I think it's sorted itself out, I hope. Right, okay, cool. Before I talk about your website, Dom, I want to know why exactly you decided to become a journalist. Like, what made you decide to choose this as a career path?
This story makes me feel a little bit old because we go way back to when I was, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years old, and I used to read a lot of video games magazines back in the day. Didn't have Twitch, didn't have YouTube, anything like that. It used to be, Nintendo official magazine, that kind of thing. I used to read Games Master, and I used to just read them for hours in my room, and really liked Games Mags. I mean, that was the only way you could find out news and information about video games and upcoming games and hardware news, that kind of thing. So that sort of got my interest early on. And then when I was growing up in English, one of my teachers just said, have you thought of being a journalist? Because I was good at writing but pretty much nothing else, useless at maths, and I thought I'd give it a go. And then sort of went to a careers open day at school, and the chap there, journalism wasn't that popular back then, and he said, I'm glad someone's turned up. And he basically said to me, it's not really what you know, it's who you know in journalism. So he advised me to put my name out there, try and go to one of these magazines or newspaper and make some contacts. So yeah, I did some work experience at the official Nintendo magazine. It's closed now, sadly, but that was when I was about 15, 16, and then they advised me to, go to university and stuff. So I went to Bournemouth Uni, studied journalism there, and then that was it, really. The rest was history. So yeah, it was the original print games magazines that got me into journalism.
That's cool. So around 2008, you started your website. It wasn't actually about esports, or rather the UK scene back then. It was called League Games Blog, and you decided that you wrote about games and reviews, tips, guides, those kind of things. So it was only last year, I think in November, when you actually officially became Esports News UK.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were writing a little bit before about the UK scene before you actually transitioned the name.
Yeah.
What triggered this transition from writing about games in general to writing about the UK esports scene?
Well, I started off my blog, when was it? Back in sort of 2008, I think, originally, 2007, 2008, just after I graduated. I just wanted a blog to just write about games, what my feelings, my thoughts about some of the latest games, and I don't know why I decided it, but I just started writing tips and advice and things for video games, and some of my articles started to get a lot of hits and tips on FIFA 10, I think, FIFA 11 back in the day, and I decided a couple of years ago I was sort of getting into esports a bit from around season 2, season 3 of League of Legends, and I thought this is really interesting. And back then, not that many people or publications were writing about it, so I thought I'll just write the odd article, and I enjoyed it, and I thought I can't really keep my blog as a bit of a mess. You know, it's I'm writing about guides one minute, some reviews the other, and then esports. So I thought, what do I like the best? And that's when I thought it'd be great to turn it into an esports site. And yeah, no one was really writing about the UK scene, so I thought I'd give it a go, really. So I was waiting for my website to be designed and developed and pushed live. So I just started writing about the scene. I didn't bother waiting. I just started writing about it when I had my old Leak Games blog brand. And yeah, the reason it was called that as well, is when I was at uni, one of my tasks on the journalism course was to devise a new magazine. So I came up with an idea for like an online gaming magazine, and I had to give it a name. So I went with that, and I won a sort of national competition from PTC, I think it is, one of the journalism bodies. And I thought, you know, I shouldn't just leave this. I should do something with it after uni. So I sort of turned it into my own little blog and went from there.
Cool. So actually, I've noticed since you started writing about the esports scene, well, particularly UK, that you started to write a lot more. Is that because, well, nearly every day, in fact, is that because you're focusing your efforts in one area now rather than several areas, or is it just because there's just so much going on in the UK scene currently?
It's a bit of both, really. I think it's more me as well. You know, if I do something, I like to try and do it properly. And I thought if I launch a site, I asked around when I launched it, and got some friends in journalism, and a lot of people were advising me, just make sure you've got regular content, you know. So I aim to do one post a day, but I can't always do that because I'm running it in my spare time at the moment. But yeah, there is so much to write about, and it can be a bit tricky being selective at times, you know. League of Legends is more my passion over other sort of esports titles, so I focused on that to begin with. But yeah, I would like to grow it out to include other games eventually.
Well, I've noticed that there are articles on there that are related to like Smash and Dota 2, I think you mentioned as well a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But why did you choose to just focus on the UK scene and not like general League of Legends or just general, like just esports?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I did think of doing that to begin with, but it's so broad. And if you look at the publications that have established themselves over the past few years, you know, Daily Dot, even Riot themselves, you know, and I was going to say that as well. These days, you've got a lot of brands in the scene making their own content. So if I'm a one-man band, I'd be competing against, you know, big publications with massive teams. So I thought, find a niche and go for that. And, you know, at the same time as well, I was wondering, why is the UK scene not as big or as prominent as it could be as other scenes, you know, Korea and Europe as a whole and America? So I thought, why not show it a little bit of love and try and help grow it as well if I can, because there's some great players here, great talents, and I thought I'd just focus on that as a niche, really.
So is that your goal for the website, to try and expose the scene in a better light, and obviously give some what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure, I guess, for the players?
It's one of the reasons, yeah, certainly. Painting it in a good light is the overall aim, just giving it exposure. But that doesn't mean I'll sort of skirt around any negative topics or opinions. I like to think I'm a fair journalist, and always happy to talk to people as well. So if anyone wants to share their views on anything, just drop me a tweet.
So you obviously do have, I know you were talking about being a like one-man band, but you obviously do have people now working with you.
Yeah.
Can you describe those people to us? Like, how did they actually get involved with the website or writing articles?
Yeah, well, I thought, because I'm doing this in my spare time, there's no way I can give it like the attention that I'd like to, all by myself. So I put up an article and a job post online, just looking for a few writers, and I've got a few responses back. And yeah, I've got two really great lads, Craig and Cameron, who've been doing a bit of some stuff for us. Cameron's been doing some video interviews, and Craig's been doing match reports and some other features as well. So yeah, it's great to have those guys on board, and hopefully expanding it out as well. I did have a couple of people get back to me interested in other games, but there hasn't been. I need to sort of get on that a little bit more. You know, that'll be my focus, I think, over the next few months.
Cool. So you are hiring at the moment. What positions are you looking for, and how can people apply to get on board with your website?
Yeah, I'm just hoping to get one person per game, really, and expand it out to a bit of a network. So, you know, we have a dedicated Smash writer, someone focusing on CSGO, someone focusing on Dota, Street Fighter, fighting game community, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's a great opportunity if anyone wants to get involved with something I feel is like important. You know, it's good fun. And especially for people who are looking to get into journalism as well. I've been writing for since uni 9 years now, but with stuff in my spare time over 10 years. So I'll be able to give lots of tips and things like that. And we're planning on meeting up at iSeries and things like that. So yeah, if anyone wants to get involved, just drop me a tweet. Or drop me an email. If you go on the eSports News UK Twitter page, there's a pinned tweet on there which links through to a post and details on how to apply. So if anyone wants to get involved, yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak to you and hear from you.
Okay, cool. And for anyone that's watching the YouTube video afterwards, we'll be putting a link in the description to both Dom's Twitter as well as his email address, so that you can try and apply and see if you can get on board with him. For those who are interested, Dom, what are you looking for in a candidate?
You got to have sort of passion for what you're writing about. Obviously, I wouldn't want someone who doesn't like esports or have anything to do with it, but I don't think they're going to apply.
Yes.
Yeah, you just got to have a real strong interest and passion, and a want to get better. And obviously writing skills are important as well, but I think that can come with time. You know, the most important thing is you're sort of passionate and you have ideas of what to write about, and sort of determined attitude. You know, it's not easy to be a journalist. I remember when I went to uni, the open day they had, the lecturer there, he got up on the lectern and he said, if anyone thinks this is going to be like an easy career path, you might as well quit now, don't bother. And he sat down, and I was like, right. And then I was, you know, I think he'd done it on purpose. He made us more determined, you know, but it's not easy being a journalist. And if you know, starting positions on established titles can be quite low in terms of pay, especially in games writing. So it's not easy, but I think there's nothing quite like it as well. You know, you get to talk to loads of interesting people, and you feel like you're making a difference as well.
So would you say you're looking for people with passion over experience, or would you like them to obviously have experience? If
no, passion over experience, I'd say, because if they were experienced, they'd be looking for, you know, higher paid roles. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that if you're thinking of writing, if you like doing it and you want to help grow the UK scene, write about the UK scene, yeah, it's great. I think passion is more important than experience in specialist journalism. Anyway, you definitely need passion. I mean, there's magazines out there about there's probably train spotting magazines, and there's knitting magazines, and God knows what else, you know. And I don't think anyone works for those kind of titles if they didn't have a passion for the subject matter.
Definitely, yeah. So what are some of the do's and don'ts for someone who's getting started? Like, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in becoming a journalist or an interviewer?
Um, you have to be uh, you have to have a sort of never give up attitude. I think in journalism, you have to have persistence. Um, Do's and don'ts. Do you mean in a sort of like interview situation, or do you mean if
Yeah,
they're just writing by themselves?
I'd say for both really, just like some tips that you could give to someone. If someone's like thinking about actually doing this and they're going, well, where do I get started? What are some of the things that I can do, and what are some of the things I should avoid doing to like not to
Yeah,
commit to?
sure. I think like a lot of people say in the games industry, the best way to get involved in a particular area that you want to get into is just to do it. So if you want to write, just start your own blog up. You know, there's loads of you can create a free blog on WordPress and Blogger and stuff like that. Just start writing. You can promote yourself a little bit on Twitter and social media. So yeah, you've really got to sort of put yourself out there. I'd say work experience is brilliant as well. Like you'll learn so much from actually being in a environment, you know, in a newsroom and working from other journalists as well. Sort of follow other journalists, read a lot of publications. That was one thing I made the mistake of when I was at uni, and you know, my lecturers would say read a real wide variety of publications, and I didn't really. I just stuck to games and stuff and sports. But read as much as you can. You know, you're in the hairdressers; they often have like loads of papers and magazines, Top Gear and things like that. Just read as much as you can, and find some journalists that sort of inspire you and give you some ideas, you know, and follow them on Twitter and check their articles out. And, you know, you can get a lot of ideas from people who are experienced and are already doing what you want to do, you know. So put yourself out there and, you know, try it. It might not be for you. Just go for it, you know. And in terms of advice for actual writing as well, I think in terms of news, you know, speed and accuracy are probably the two most important things to focus on. I have a lot of writers out there who start out and they just write something and don't check it. You know, it's one of the basic things as a journalist to always check your facts. And I'll put my hand up. I am guilty of sometimes not always getting checking as much as I'd like for eSports News UK. But I think as well, it's the nature of like it's such a fast-moving scene. You know, it's so hard to keep on top of, and when everyone, almost, you know, all the pros, they know what's going on. So you need to come up with sometimes like a different angle as well. You know, but yeah, I'm detracting from what you asked me. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I did notice actually as soon as, or maybe even before last week's episode ended with Vince. Obviously, he made an announcement about team sensors, and it was already on the website before the site had even, or rather, the show had even finished. So that, I mean, that's what you always say about being quick.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where like it's good to be a team player as well in journalism. You know, that was Craig that helped me out with that.
Yeah.
I said I couldn't make it to watch the show, and he said he'll cover it, and because you know you guys teased that there's going to be an announcement, so I said just, you know, yeah, keep an eye on it, and he did a really good job, and yeah, he managed to get 3 hours into a 250 word article. So yeah, yeah, that was all Craig. I can't take credit for that one.
Yeah, and obviously, I'd guess before you were writing about games in general, I guess, and into esports, did you write a lot before going into it, or were the first things you did for the website, were they the first articles you did? Like basically, I guess the question is, do you write a lot of articles that you might decide, oh, this isn't actually good enough to put on the website, I'll scrap this, but at least I've got some experience from doing that at the start?
No, I'll only write something if I think it's worthy of covering. Yeah, I do sometimes deliberate over whether I should cover something or not, because time is really tight, you know, so I try and cover the biggest things if I can. But yeah, I'll only ever cover. I've never really scrapped an article. If I think it's worth doing, I won't write half an article and then leave it, unless it's legal complications and things like that, which is really rare. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't really tend to sort of, you know, throw away ideas halfway through.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So moving on to like interviews, obviously you've done interviews with many people over the years. And what process do you actually use to get yourself ready and to prepare for those interviews?
I think just doing the research is key. Have an angle in mind. I mean, most of the time, if you approach someone for an interview or they approach you for an interview, there's something they want to talk about or there's something you want to ask them about. So you'll already have a clear sort of, or a loose angle in mind. And then I'll always, you know, endeavour to make sure that we cover off what they want to talk about. But then I might ask them a few other things as well, anything that's relevant with them. For example, player contracts is a topic that's quite relevant at the moment. So if I'm interviewing a team about their new roster, I'll just throw in a question about player contracts as well, because they might have something interesting to say. You know, I always think there's no such thing as a bad question, and you can never ask too many. So, but do your research. It's always good to look at what that team or that company or player has done, like in recent months. That's something I did with Snoop when I talked to him last year. I saw that he put a Reddit post up about a year ago about player careers, you know, and retiring early, and he touched on it slightly in one of his older posts. So I just asked him all about that, and you know, you're bringing light to topics and areas of discussion that might not have been talked about before. You know, I always try and get exclusives as well, because if there's a story going around that's been covered by 30 other websites, there's not too much point. I don't see much point in doing it unless you've got a sort of exclusive or different angle or different take on it, you know. And that's one of the challenges, I think, of being a journalist these days as well, is that everyone can be a journalist. You know, everyone can write. You've got to sort of set yourself apart and write something that's engaging and is a bit different, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, just following up from that point is, you know, with the internet being so accessible, so many people have blogs, like that have the ability to actually just be a journalist. Whereas before, in the past, it was obviously all newspapers and magazines, which you can't necessarily get into unless you're a professional and paid for that role. Whereas now anyone can do it their pastime, which you are doing alongside your actual journalistic stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It's like I say, anyone can be a journalist, but I think that was something that I covered a lot when I was at uni, the role of the journalist and how it was changing. And I still think it's really important to have journalists, because as much as anyone can write something that will go viral, you know, you need journalists. They have a knack of unearthing bits of information that others might not be able to. You know, if you're a journalist at a national newspaper, you're going to have, or depending on the sector you're focusing on, you know, you're going to have contacts in the police, in the government, all kinds of sectors that bloggers might not have. And, you know, you're able to uncover stories and things that other people might not be able to. So I think it's still really important, like the role of a journalist, but it's certainly more challenging than it was, right? Years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. You're competing with everyone now online, but I think, like I say, if you've got a niche, you've got a topic to focus on, and you've got to want to write about it as well, because it's no good having a site or publication that you write for when you feel like it, you know, once every couple of weeks or whatever, because people just won't come back, and you'll drop off the Google search rankings. So, yeah.
Yeah, so do you think you think this is the way forward then? Like newspapers, do you think they might die out? Do you think that it's all going to be online now?
Yeah, it's a good question. The Independent is closed, doesn't it? Was always closing. I think that
Yeah,
just was announced the other day.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Most games mags are gone now. I still read PC Gamer, which is excellent. And I don't think they're going to die out fully. I think they'll change a lot. Some might go online only in the future, or it might be more tablet based. Apple News, that kind of stuff. But I don't think a general newspaper. It depends what you mean. I mean, will print always be around? I'm not sure. I'd like to think so. There's nothing like reading a good book or magazine for me. I'd much rather read on paper than on a screen the whole time. And would have been great to make eSports News UK a printed title, but it's just so expensive and it's so risky now.
Of course.
And you've got to be online. So I'm not sure. I don't think they'll die out, but they'll shrink definitely.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the advantage though with the internet being so accessible. I mean, you say it's difficult, but at the same time, it's also made you actually have the ability to discuss the UK scene. You wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't so easy for you to get your content out there for people to view.
Exactly, and I think it depends on the publication. You look at eSports, you look at the viewers, the audience. It's not the same as someone that reads the FT. So those guys that follow eSports, myself included, are using their smartphones, their tablets to follow games on Twitch. So you've got to be there. You've got to be where the readers are. Where the viewers are, the audience is. So yeah, I think it depends on the title, but certainly, yeah, if my website wasn't a website and it was a print title, I wouldn't have been able to launch it anyway. But yeah, it would have been a lot more difficult to reach that. If you look at something like World of Warcraft as well, that's a good example. They launched a World of Warcraft magazine. I can't remember how long ago it was now, probably 8-9 years, maybe even longer, and it just didn't work because those kind of people that play World of Warcraft and follow eSports probably don't want to read the magazine every month. News breaks quickly, and they're on Reddit and they're reading it straight away. If you're going to do a magazine, you've got to provide something extra, really good in-depth features and things that you won't get online, which is a big challenge.
I think that's one thing that's kind of changed the face of journalism. Actually, is the website Reddit. It's just so it almost seems like you need to be on Reddit to actually be able to succeed. I think like a lot of traffic is generated from Reddit. You see all the time.
Yeah.
Videos or articles, they're viral, or like even websites, they just break because people post it, goes front page, and then that's it. Like they get like 50,000 hits or something.
That's exactly right. And I've tried putting a few things on Reddit, and they have obviously a very strict policy. So I got a message the other day saying so I've probably posted like 4 or 5 articles over the past month or two, so maybe one a week.
Yeah.
And I got a message the other day saying you're breaking the terms and conditions and stuff. You have to post up 9 other articles from 9 different sources. For every one, you can promote your own article. And so it's difficult for me. I think once you've built enough of a following, you'll have readers that just post up the content for you. It's not something that. It's not easy for publishers to get their stuff up there. And also, it goes back to the point I was making about people posting their own content. Team organisations now, if they've got a new player, they'll just put a video up. When Double Lift moved across, they put a video up. He was up there, and they didn't need a journalist to do that. They did it all themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the journalists could write about it afterwards. So it's amazing, really, when you think how journalism and news has changed. But Reddit, certainly is really key, I think.
Yeah, because those teams also want obviously the hits and everything to go to their their platforms because they want to obviously make money themselves. Because
Exactly.
if you watch, like, say, a team announcement or something, or a player announcement, they'll might have other videos on that channel or other articles on that channel, and once someone's clicked on one of them, they might click on the others, and that's like hands the snowball effect to actually be able to get
It
more.
all exactly. Sadly, it probably all boils down to money because the teams have sponsors, right? I want to keep them
Yeah,
happy. And if you look at a lot of the big teams as well, their videos tend to be, uh, heavily branded with the sponsors and things like that. So if they're going to get 500,000 views putting up their own video of a new player joining, they're going to do it. Why should they give it to a publication? I think it's harder now for journalists to get those exclusives. It all comes down to contacts and hearing things on the grapevine and hearing that someone is moving teams or something like that, and then putting a story out there. And then the tricky thing regarding that is if you put a story out, you might piss some people off. So you've got to weigh up whether it's worth doing that or whether it's not. When I say, I'm not saying talking about being afraid to put stuff up. I'm saying it can burn bridges, right?
yeah,
If you've got a contact that's giving you really good information, you don't really want to burn bridges with them. So again, it's a challenge for publications and journalists like myself.
yeah. I suppose that's why people like Travis, for example, who do player interviews, they've got that like unique content that's always going to be it's always going to be like changing for those people.
Yeah, that's right. You need to have your own sort of style, and the likes of Travis and Thorin and Richard Lewis, they've all got their own style, and you need that, and obviously big sort of viewer base as well. But yeah, so it goes back to the point of like providing something unique, something a bit different that no one else is going to do. And I like to think that with eSports News UK, teams like yourselves, TCA are putting out content as well. ESL do match reports. That's no different to Premier League. Putting out their own match reports on football games. But the likes of ESL and team orgs will never be able to cover the controversial stuff because it's not in their interests, right? It can affect their brand, and that's where hopefully sites like mine can step in and write about those trickier subjects that some of the organisations won't be able to cover.
Yeah. So for you then, how do you realize that something it will make a good storyline? Like when something happens in the scene, does like a light bulb pop in your head that you go, oh, this will be something like good content for people to look at?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, when I started out studying journalism, I'll be honest, I was absolutely dreadful at news. I was absolutely awful at figuring out what a story was. I was more of a feature writer. I'd like writing games reviews and things like that and interesting features. And I couldn't get my head around news. I remember my news lecturer at uni, Dan Hogan, in our first few weeks of signing up and joining the uni, we had to go out and get stories, and he'd give us a different task each week. And the first task was like, I know it sounds weird, it was interview an elderly person. But what he wanted to do was get us out of our comfort zone and talk to a stranger in the street and try and get a story out of them. And actually, he was making it easy on us because, older people, always happy, well, most of them, and you're probably happy to talk. And then the next week, he'd move us on to other things. So he'd say, interview a taxi driver or something like that. Something that you think, oh, this is a bit weird or a bit awkward, but he did it to get us out of our comfort zones. And I think in the third week, he said, like, go out and get a story from your local area. So I was in Bournemouth Uni. I was living near, like, on the seafront. I was really, back then, I couldn't figure out what a story was, to be honest. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I walked around, I saw there was like a sign up on a lamppost saying something about planning permission, and a block of flats is going to be put up or something like that. And I had nothing else. I didn't want to make anything up. I never make anything up. So I wrote it, and when it came back and he'd marked it a few days later, he said, "Dom, like your writing's good, but what the hell is this? What the hell is this shit? Block of flats, see me kind of thing, you know."
Yeah.
And then after that, I chatted to him, and slowly over the years, and working my first job in journalism as well, Auto Trader, it just clicked, and all the story is really is just something that someone will mention to their friends, or they'll say, "Oh, you know, did you hear this? This is happening." And for me, that's what a headline is as well. You know, oh, so and so's joined Team Infused or whatever. You know, it's something that is interesting enough to talk about. If it's worth bringing up with your friends or someone who's interested in esports or whatever you're covering, then it's worth writing about. You know, so. But it can be difficult sometimes, you know. Sometimes I'll write about things that aren't that popular, don't get many hits, or people think, "Oh, why is he writing about that?" or stirring stuff up. You know, it's not to stir stuff up; it's to cover something that I deem to be interesting. You know, and it is a bit of a gut feeling, but you just know. You just, because I've been doing it so long now, you know if something's a story or not. It's quite hard to explain.
Yeah. So, do you try and stay clear of controversial topics, or do you want to cover those kind of things?
No, I think it's good to cover them, but it depends on what it is. You know, it depends on what it is. You've got to take a call on each sort of topic. You know, I don't want to cover controversial things for controversy's sake. You want something that's still interesting and is worth bringing to light. And I have had one story bugging me since I've been writing, since I've set up eSports News UK, that I haven't covered, and I need to explore it in greater detail, because with controversial things, if something is controversial, it's going to piss someone off, right? So you've got to be careful. Got to be really, really careful with libel, defamation, because, you know, if you put something out there that is untrue and it's defamed a brand, you're in heaps of trouble. You know, people can take you to court and everything. So I always want to check things. But yeah, it's, you know, you do need to cover the controversial things, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed, like, a lot with what you're doing, your pieces, they're more informative and factual about the events occurring in the UK scene, rather than like an opinion piece. Is this like your stylistic approach to journalism, and did you choose this on purpose?
Yes and no, in a way. I think when I left uni and I got a job on Auto Trader, I mean, I'm not a fan of cars. I did it just to sort of cut my teeth in journalism, and I learned a hell of a lot. And it fine-tuned my writing style to sort of focus on the basics. And a lot of news stories do that as well. That if you look at stories on like the Guardian, the BBC, they're very straight, you know, factual, and rarely put opinions in unless it's an opinion piece. And I do like writing the odd opinion piece. I find in games writing in general, you know, Kotaku, GameSpot, that kind of things, those writers, they do throw in opinions here and there, and it can be good. You know, you can have a really good fun writing style. But for me, I like the idea of just getting the facts across and letting the reader make up their own mind as to what's happened. You know, I wouldn't say this is an expensive deal. This is an expensive deal. A team's bought a player. I'd say this deal, so and so has been signed for whatever it is. You know, global esports players, whatever it is, 60 grand or something, and let that do the talking. You know, show, don't tell. That's what I was taught in my first job. You know, show the facts. Don't tell someone this player is expensive. Just say what the price is, and they'll make their mind up whether it's expensive or not.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so like how do you basically over the years you've been obviously talking about how you weren't so good at making stories, even though your writing was good. Like, over the years, how have you like defined yourself to basically improve yourself as a journalist?
Um, it's keep going, keep writing, and like I was saying before, just keep uh, reading all the time, reading other stories, reading different publications. Put yourself outside your comfort zone. The other thing that made me learn as well is I'd I'd hear things, and then I'd see a story go up about it a week later, and I'd
Mm,
think, why the hell didn't I do that?
yeah,
And then when that happens a few times, you soon learn. You get on the stories really quick.
yeah.
Um, it's just practice, really. Yeah, it's just doing the job and getting used to it. And the more you write, the more you sort of flesh out your own writing style, and you just learn as you go, really.
Are there any like journalists in the scene, or perhaps just in general, that you looked up to as you were going through the like experience of learning how to be a journalist, or just in general, I guess, like what is it about those
Yeah,
people that inspire you?
it's a hell of a lot, really. When I was growing up reading the old games magazines when I was a kid, I think Tim Street, he was the editor of Nintendo Official Magazine. He's not a journalist anymore. I think he's a teacher now. But I learnt a lot from him because he had a sort of very enthusiastic writing style, and I got a lot of my games information from him. So I kind of respected him and looked up to him, and aspired to be like that. Um, and then I think over the years, really, I've had a load of inspirations. I mean, when I was at uni, there was a guy in the year above me, and I worked on a student paper with him, and he was the editor. He's called David Ornstein, and he went on to write for the BBC, and he does match reports now, and he's got hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, and he's known amongst Arsenal fans now as the Oracle, because everything he says is, every little bit of fact, little bit of information comes true. If he has a story about a player who's about to sign for Arsenal, sure, and pretty much, 3-4 weeks later they're going to sign for Arsenal. So he inspired me a lot. I learnt a lot from him on the student paper, and then as well, like people I've worked with. Chris String is editor of MCV, which is a trade publication for the games industry, and I sit near him at work for my main job, and he's done a lot for the games industry, and yeah, he really has a strong interest in it. I learned a lot from him, and also in games as well. Keza McDonald, who's the editor of Kotaku UK. I worked with her at Games TM for a bit. I was doing work experience there when I was a teenager. I was like 18, 19, and I think she was something like 16, and she was a staff writer already. So she's her writing style is really exciting, and gets you interested in the game she writes about. In esports in general, I think Richard Lewis is really good, and then as well leaning more towards the presenter side, but I still think that's super important, and it's kind of similar to journalism as well. You've got Shocks, obviously, and Julia Hardy for the BBC, and I think they're both brilliant at what they do as well. So yeah, there's a real mix there. I've waffled
Yeah,
a little bit.
So, like, is what you're doing now, like, obviously it's just like a pastime for you, but well, rather, it's something that you do in your spare time. But how interested are you in the games that you're covering, like League of Legends, like Dota, Smash, etc.? Like, which one would you prefer to actually cover?
League of Legends, the main one. Since I first picked that up 3 or 4 years ago now, I just was hooked. I think it's a fantastic game. Smash Brothers, I used to play a little bit on the GameCube back in the day as well, so that's got a place in my heart. And I used to play Counter-Strike Source at uni. So I am super interested in most of them. Games like Dota, StarCraft, I'm not massive on them, but I still think it's really important to cover them, obviously. So yeah, talking to someone at the moment who's keen to write about StarCraft, so yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. But certainly League is one of my favourites, and Rocket League, if you consider that an esports game, I suppose it is. That's good fun as well. I play a bit of everything, to be honest.
Yeah, I bought the game. I've just not had time to play it yet, unfortunately. It does look like a lot of fun, so I need to get
Rocket
onto
League.
it. Yeah, Rocket League. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stupid game, but that's what makes it so fun. I was at I was at an event late last year. Can't remember what it was called now, but it was like around games, YouTubers and streamers and things like that. You know, there was a lot of kids and teenagers there following their YouTube stars and everything, and they had a lot of new games there, like Metal Gear Solid 5 and the new FIFA and the new PES, but Rocket League had the longest queues. It's just so popular. I just couldn't believe it, but it's just so fun. It's so easy to pick up and play. You know, football with cars. I mean, it sounds stupid, and it is, but it's really good fun.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like, I can't remember. I'm not going to throw a number out there, but it's a huge amount of the player base for League of Legends is casual gamers. So I think you have. And I think that's what like attributes to a lot to the success for League of Legends. Yes, you do have the competitive side, but I mean, how many people actually sit down and watch League, like the esports side of it, compared to the amount of people play it? Like, let's just say that there was 50 million people who played it every month. You probably get like 500,000 of those actually watching the games. So it's the casual side that actually kind of brings the game up to it being popular, and I think that's probably why Rocket League is so popular as well, because it is so casual, yet there's like that competitive element to it.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what? I think that's the case across the board for esports games. I know League is not the easiest thing to pick up, but when I first started playing it, it seemed pretty simple, right? You know, and then when you play it and you play it and you play it, you realise it's kind of easy to pick up and super hard to master. And I think the best esports games are like that. I mean, look at Counter-Strike as well. I thought I was okay at that at uni. I mean, who am I kidding now when I see some of the pros playing? It's like, oh my God, I tried playing it a few months ago. I was utterly useless. My reactions have just completely gone.
Yeah, I used to think I was good at Source, and then now that Go's come out and I'm watching other people, like the clutch plays that ESL put out all the time, I'm just like, yeah, I was garbage, absolute garbage.
It's put me off playing it now. I like watching it, but playing it, my reactions have completely gone. You know.
I mean, I stopped playing after I was playing loads of Go, but then they changed the way that you can play, because they wanted to like fight people who were obviously smurfing all the time. So you have to like play, I don't know, 18 hours of deathmatch or something to actually be able to play competitive, and that absolutely killed it for me. I didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, going back to League as well, I have this weird like love-hate relationship with the game in terms of playing it. You know, I can watch it fine. I can watch the pros play. I love watching it. In terms of playing it, you know, and but it's partly why I love it as well, because every game is so different. You know, unless you're playing with a team or with a friend, you don't know who you're going to be with. You don't know what's going to happen. And for me, that's why it's, in a weird way, I compare it to FIFA in a way. You know, you've got the same map, the same pitch, but a million different possibilities every game, and I think that's what makes it so good.
Yeah. So, I mean, we detracted a little bit from the point there. We just both decided to go on a bit of a tangent, but we were talking about interviews before. Have you had any situations, either like early on or maybe even recently, where you've had like funny or awkward interviews?
Not really recently. I don't really get many awkward interviews. I've had a few awkward interviews for my day job, where I've been talking to someone, and it's my day job is PC retail, so it's a trade publication for the computer industry. You know, distributors, retailers, the guys that make your PC. You know, ASUS and people like that. And I've interviewed a couple. You know, it's a very different audience, but I've interviewed a few people before who, you know, the kind of people who are super busy and they're checking their phone kind of thing all the time.
Yeah. And
it's like, it kind of puts you off talking to them, you know. But other than that, I don't really have awkward interviews. I always try and, if there is a bit of awkwardness, I try and get that out of the way by, it's obviously something's annoying them, and you just talk through it, what's bothering you, kind of thing. But it's really rare. I don't really tend to have awkward interviews. Funny interviews, not really recently, not really so much in esports. There's loads of great characters, but the weirdest, funniest interview I've done was when I was on a toy trade publication, believe it or not, for a year, and I interviewed Elmo, of all people, of all things, and that was a weird interview because it was Elmo, it was two other Sesame Street puppets, and then obviously the puppeteers behind them. So it was actually like 6 faces. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know whether to look at the puppet or look at the person. So I had 6 different faces to look at, and that was just weird. That's out there somewhere. You can Google it, but that was a very weird interview. I don't think anything can top that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a very strange experience, I imagine. So I know you're saying that you don't really have awkward interviews too often, but like, do you have the ability to like steer away from the direction of the awkwardness and actually like put it into a direction where you might be able to make them feel a little bit more comfortable?
Yes, sometimes maybe I just don't see awkwardness. Maybe I'm just the talkative guy and I don't see any awkwardness. But if it's clear they don't want to talk about something, usually they'll tell you beforehand, and you'll have a chat off the record or something. Or if you do touch on something and you've touched a nerve, then if it's an issue worth pressing, you have to press it. But I don't really want to just annoy people for the sake of it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't really tend to get that. It's quite a hard question to answer.
That's fair enough. So you've done a lot of interviews and you've done a lot of article pieces, obviously. Which one do you prefer?
My goodness, my favourite article I've written?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, like, do you prefer writing articles or do you prefer doing like interviews on camera, like face to face with people?
Sorry, yeah. I prefer weird actually. I prefer writing articles, but I prefer interviewing people face to face because you can actually have a decent chat with them, and it's just always better to talk either face to face or on the phone if you can. But because of the nature of the industry, it's so fast moving. Skype chat tends to be the easiest way to get information across. Sometimes it can be hard to flesh out people's opinions and comments, right, if they're only writing a couple of lines. So that's what I prefer writing. I like doing video, but you've got to do the video, then you've got to edit it, then you've got to upload it, then you've got to push it out. Whereas writing, yes, okay, you've got to get the information in first, but I'm just more comfortable, I think, tapping away on the keyboard and getting something up in terms of writing an article.
So with like you're obviously, like we've discussed many times, you're obviously a journalist in general, rather than it be like this is the second, like the side thing you're doing rather than the main thing. Is there any crossover from what you've done and what you are doing now with like the esports side of things?
Yeah, there is, because the trade publication I write for, PCR, that's read by a lot of the manufacturers and retailers, and a lot of those guys sponsor esports teams. Acer, even TP Link, even the people who make your routers, sponsored Team Dignitas, I think, for a bit. So there is a bit of crossover. A lot of those guys that read the magazine are throwing money at esports. Not so much in the UK. I know the likes of Intel and AOC and people like that back in the ESL. You've got a range of different sponsors getting involved with the team organisation. So there's that tiny bit of crossover. But I tend not to write about esports too much for that, because it is more about it's more for like retailers, looking to sell computers and things. So I've touched on esports a bit, but I would never do match reports or anything like that. That's written more for fans, rather than people in the PC trade.
Yeah. So I mean, you were speaking about Acer then. I do remember, I can't remember the exact date. I think it was around August, where you wrote an article about like Acer and how the fact that they were saying it's just too expensive to be able to like sponsor and finance a team in the UK. I mean, it's getting a little bit better now, but like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I think several things with the UK. You need to, yes, we need to obviously increase more money going into the scene, but you're only going to get more money going into the scene if the scene is bigger. And for the scene to get bigger, you need more viewers, more fans. And I mean, I think there is a lot of room for expansion. League of Legends is a huge game. The ESL views, I think on the weekend they were sort of getting around 500. The most I've seen is 3,000, and that was with Riot promoting the matches in their client, on the League of Legends client and things like that. So I would like to see that get into tens of thousands, call me a dreamer or whatever, but I don't think there's any reason why we can't get there. League's really popular and got some great talent in the UK scene. So I think if we can get those viewer numbers up, then the money from the sponsors will follow, and it will create a bit of a chain reaction where you get more and more money coming into the scene. Because I have heard rumours that there's going to be more money, like big money, going into the I-Series tournaments, but that's just a rumour I've heard, and isn't the case so far, because at I-57 the prize pools I think are very similar to what they were last year. The same with ESL UK Premiership as well. I think there was 10 grand prize pool for season 2 of the League of Legends Premiership, and this next season coming up is 10.5 grand. So it's not growing as much as I'd like to see, but I think there's several factors, and it may be a slow process.
Yeah, I think in a couple of years possibly, especially with the fact that we've got this the spot for the Challenger Series, that we should hopefully see some growth towards people actually wanting to watch our games, especially this season as well. The teams that have qualified, the 8 teams, I think the quality of the teams is so much higher than it was last year, so the game should be a lot more interesting to watch and not so much of a clown fiesta.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was Nihir from Team Infused, their coach. I haven't put it up yet, but I've done an interview with him, and he was saying, like, it's changed a lot this season. It isn't just all about the old guard anymore. It's about these teams have changed a lot. And going back to what you were saying, I think the Challenger Series qualification is great. I think what we need is, I think having the player contracts is great as well. If we can keep the players together, and if the top team makes it into the Challenger Series and is like a UK team, that would be fantastic, because that will put them on the map a little bit more. And that's what we need. I mean, it was incredibly frustrating to see Infused's roster change completely. I mean, they went undefeated. That was a phenomenal achievement, and it just broke away straight away, and that was a shame. Because they had really strong lineup, but they had that connection with each other. Alfari and Maxlaw were really devastating combo in the top lane and the jungle. So it's tricky. I think if we can keep the teams together, get one in the Challenger Series, that would be fantastic for boosting the scene.
Yeah, I was discussing this a little bit last week with Vince as well. Like, obviously Choke was so successful with the lineup that they had, and then after like a 6-month stint of them having a different team, they brought back the original roster minus Zodiac, and they had Tundra in it instead. And again, they won. Like, it is such a successful roster, and yet they've all just gone somewhere else now, and that's it. I think that roster was probably one of the most successful, at least in recent times anyway. So it's a bit
Chokes.
Chokes, yeah. But like both Choke and Infused, like the really strong rosters, and it's just a shame to see that, just like with loads of different games in the UK, teams just seem to break off and disappear after one event.
It's the case with FM as well, great lineup, and that's changed completely as well. Again, it's the rosters change so much, don't they, in the UK scene? Hard to keep on top of it all, but I think a lot of the players have ended up played in loads of teams, haven't they? But they're still in the scene. So it shows that you've still got that dedication. But yeah, I'd like to see a few rosters stick together for longer than a year. Again, I'm probably being a bit of a dreamer, but I'd like to see that.
Well, hopefully,
if you could get.
yeah, hopefully now that we have contracts in, more and more teams will obviously start following on with that kind of thing. Hopefully,
Yeah,
that will actually make a bit more stable and reliable competition where people will actually stay together for like a year or so, or even more. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, that'd be great if we can get that going. You know, sorry, I've just seen do I look a bit blurry?
Just a
Sorry
little
if
bit,
I'm.
yeah.
I don't know what's happened there with that
Not
stupid
sure.
thing. Oh,
Oh,
there we
there you
go.
go. Boom, like a magic trick. So, would you ever consider? I know you've obviously wrote for Riot in the past, but would you ever consider if the opportunity arose to work for them full time? Or would you rather
But
do like continue doing what you're doing now, where you obviously have more freedom and control around what content you produce?
potentially, yeah, it depends on lots of factors. I like to think I'll always do my own thing, no matter what I've got as my main job. Whether there'll be a conflict of interest there, I don't know. But I'd like to think I'm not going to give this up anytime soon. No way. But potentially, right? You know, they're a fantastic company, and you know, you look at people like Draggles who've done really well. The pun master himself, he started off doing his own thing, didn't he? And he got offered a job at Riot. I mean, look at Shocks as well. Same kind of thing, just interviewing players and got off. You know, they snap up the talent.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I'm being honest. I'd relocate to Ireland. That's the one thing for me. I've got a lot of friends and family in Essex,
Yeah.
and it's kind of my home here. So if I did anything, it'd probably be more freelance stuff potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same for me just in general for jobs. Like, I don't really want to leave Manchester. I just love the place so much. I
Mm.
mean, I'm just biased, obviously, from living here for so long, but I wouldn't really want to leave this city to go elsewhere, and definitely not down south. I couldn't live in London at all. I don't really like the place. Sorry for anyone who lives there.
No, I know what you mean. It's very, very busy, London. I tend to avoid it where I can. But obviously good for doing stuff, you know, nights out and whatever, and work stuff. Um, you're not a Man U fan, are you?
I am. I live actually maybe 5 minutes walk away from the stadium, so I kind of have to. We're not doing
Ah,
too well this year, but yes, I am.
that's all right. They're not a rival to Arsenal anymore. They've sort of dropped down a bit, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I kind of think that, I know detracting slightly, but in terms of like the National University Esports League, I want to see more teams that are, you know, um, sort of from their areas and pushing their local areas. You know, you've got so many football team. I live in Chelmsford. You know, you've got Chelmsford City Football Club here. You know, why can't we have I don't know, Mad Manx esports team? Not that that's a very good name, but do you know what I mean? I'd like to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
more of that. I'd like to see a Essex esports team. You know.
That's definitely something that I'd like to see. In fact, I think I brought it up to Josh on the first episode. I was saying, why did he decide to pick like a student organization rather than
Mm,
just a general something that would work similar to the Premier League, where you have Manchester versus Manchester, and you're fighting for
yeah.
the best team in Manchester, and then it's like Manchester versus Liverpool, and now there's a rivalry there as well. I thought that would be a pretty cool
Honestly,
situation.
yeah, honestly, I know it sounds weird. That could be the key to growing UK esports. Having because people, you know, having that sort of tribal competitiveness, people will back their local areas. I mean, that's how football started out.
Yeah.
You know, local teams. You know, Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan. Woolwich Arsenal, small team from South London, now one of the biggest teams in the world. You know, and why can't that be the case for esports? You know, it, absolutely, you could do that, couldn't you? You could have a national esports league, NEL. It doesn't have to be university. I mean, university is good because you're getting the young talent, but they've got to divvy their time up with their studies as well. So it's hard. You know, if you open it up to everyone, um, that could be a really good idea. Someone should do that.
Someone should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I was just saying, like, after I finished university and I could no longer partake in the NUL, I was basically stuck with, I mean, like in an intermediate stage where I'm not good enough for like the ESL, even though it didn't exist back then. But
Mm,
there's nothing left for me because I can't be part of the university scene. So that's why I think I made that point to Josh. I hope I did, because
mm,
if not, I wish I had now. Um, so yeah, I guess that's. Sorry.
It's tricky, right? You know, you could set the only alternative is to set up an esports team and go head to head with the likes of Choke and FM and all these established teams. You know, which is incredibly difficult to do. You know, especially if you want to do it as your main source of income. You know, it's really really hard. So I don't know how some of the teams do it. To be honest, it's not easy. Another reason why we need more money coming into esports, I think, to make it easier for people to start up their own organisations. You know.
Yeah, definitely. So, have you ever considered doing this full time rather than kind of doing it as a part-time thing on the side?
Yes, I have. Yeah, quite a lot actually. Almost every day. I would love to do it. I would love to do it full time, but at the same time, I do enjoy my job, and I think if you're writing about something all day and reading about it all day and all night, when you come home from work, you want to de-stress. You know, you want to focus on something else. I mean, when I was on MCV, the games trade publication, I was writing about the games industry all day, and then when I was coming home, I was kind of sick of playing some of the games, you know, especially some of the big games that get all the headlines, you know, Mass Effect, EA games and things like that. I was a bit sick of it at that point. I started playing football a bit more. Whereas now I've got that good balance where I write about the computing industry in the day, and then I write about esports in the evenings and on weekends. So it'd be great to do it full time. Again, the challenge is making money, you know, and making nothing out of the site at the moment. And but I just do it because it's my passion, and I love writing about it, you know. So it would be good to do it full time, but whether that'll actually happen, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you never know. You never know. So we were just, obviously, I would keep dotting back to the ESL.
Yeah.
We now know the 8 teams that are qualified for the ESL, the UK Premiership. What are your predictions? Like, just have as like a guess or an educated guess on what you think the final standings would be for the end of the season.
It's hard. I mean, I thought when Renegades came in, I thought they'd just storm it, but I'm not so sure. I mean, it's almost like a fresh start for everyone. The rosters have changed so much. You kind of have to forget about what happened last season.
Yep.
It's top 3, isn't it? It's incredibly hard to pick, and yeah, I don't want to upset anyone, but I think top 4. I think Renegades and Manolite will definitely be up there, and Choke as well, and I wouldn't rule Exertus out from what I'm hearing about that team.
Yeah.
So probably that as the top 4. I've probably missed someone, and I sound really stupid now, but yeah, I'll go for those 4.
Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction so that I can look back at it later and see if I'm right. But just going from the rosters that I know, I mean, they might not be 100% correct anyway, but from what I know, I think Renegades first, then Exodus, then TCA, no bias, then Manolate, then M&M, then Choke, then FM, and then Infused. And I'm not saying that any of those teams are bad. I just think the competition is so close. Someone has to finish last, unfortunately.
That's right.
And I think that will be Infused.
I mean, what story that will be if they go from first to last? I can't see it. I can't see it Infused. I mean, they'll make it happen, won't they? 2 times winners. I can't see that happening. But you might, you know, you could well be right. I mean, we've got similar top 4s as well, except you've obviously gone for TCA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame not to see a few of the other teams in. I'm gutted that the Null aren't in, and Pariah and a few others, because they've all worked so hard. But just having 8, you know, that's the way it is. And I guess we'll see what will happen. But I don't know if Renegades are going to finish top. I've got a funny feeling about this league. It might be a bit weird. I wouldn't. They're going to have to work hard to get to that top spot, I think.
I think they'll be okay. I definitely think they'll be okay there. It just depends how cocky they play. Because I did notice over the weekend they didn't necessarily always respect their opponents. So I think they probably will. No, in fact, I'm not going to say probably. They will definitely drop games They're not going to go undefeated like Infused did last season. They will drop games.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I didn't manage to watch all the games this weekend. I was doing some other bits, but from what I caught up on and from what I've seen, I don't want to name names, but yeah, there are certain people who played really well last season that haven't been as impressive as I would have expected them to be so far. But I think that is also comes with new team, new players, right? You've got to gel with each other.
Yeah,
Sure. So I think it'll be a time will tell.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to start like properly. I know it's just around the corner now, but I can't wait to see these games and just watch them, because it's something I've been missing, the content, or not the content, but just the games like the UK scene can produce.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like quite a long while now as well, right? So it's
Yeah.
been almost like 2 months since the finals of season 2.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was around November, wasn't it?
No, oh sorry, yeah, early December I think it was.
Yeah.
Late November, early December. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Probably over 2 months. Yeah. Congrats to you guys, by the way, as well. I haven't said that, but yeah, congrats for qualifying.
Yeah,
did really well.
We're really happy. We were a bit scared at first, or at least I'll say I was scared. I don't know about anyone else, but they're probably very confident. But I was slightly worried that we might not necessarily do it, especially after seeing how well Newell played in the upper bracket.
Yeah.
And then to see them get knocked down, I was like, oh god, we're gonna have a really tough game here. And just in case Josh is watching, he rubbed it in our faces that they beat us last time, so I'm just gonna say, haha, we won this time.
UK eSports banter. That's one thing you can guarantee about the scene, right? We'll always have our banter and memes.
Always the memes. So, yesterday you also wrote an article about what Tundra had posted, the petition for best of 2 format over the best of 1 format for this new season. And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, at first I thought, firstly I'll just say it wasn't just Tundra. That was my bad. When he tweeted it, it's a bunch of UK esports elders. I've put them all in the article, so that's all updated. But my selfish views to begin with were, I thought, best of 1. Yes, you've got the risk of cheese, but it's easy to cover as a journalist. And it's kind of exciting as well in a weird way. You know, everything rides on that one game. But if you want to go the fairer route, then you have to say it. And I like the idea of this sort of best of 2, not a best of if you include a draw. But I like the idea of teams drawing 1-1, because I think if it's a really fiercely, tightly contested match and the teams are really, really equal, 1-1 is a really fair result. You know. Whereas, as it was before, it was 3 points or nothing, you know. Yeah. So I think it is a good thing. But on the flip side, from what I've heard from some people as well, is that, you know, ESL work their asses off, work their socks off, putting together the Premiership. And I'm not letting them off or anything, but I say, you know, it will require extra time, effort, and input from ESL. To change this format so late and to make the matches longer, ultimately. But, you know, they've got the sponsors and everything. Hopefully they can do it. But I know they work really hard, so I don't want to disrespect ESL or anything. Ideal world, best of 2, but I wouldn't be too unhappy on a selfish personal note as a journalist if it's a best of 1. But I can certainly understand the frustrations of the teams if it does remain the best of 1.
Yeah, I mean, I just absolutely hate best of 1 format. I really hope that they can stay away from it, because you just have to, like, whether that would be best of 2 or best of 3. I mean, I don't know which way you would want to go down. I really feel like it has to be something else, because it really does like hinder the quality and accuracy of the games. You know, there's been so many cases, if you look in best of 3s through like EU, NA, Worlds or anything, so many teams will win the first game and then they'll following, because they've spoke to the coaches and analysts in between like the game, they've gone on to lose the next two because the other team has had that advantage. It's just so important, and it creates. I feel like it creates better storylines as well for the teams.
Yep, you're right. Yes, in a way, yeah. But on the flip side, looking at it on the other hand, if you're Renegades and you're back in the Challenger Series qualifiers and you beat Millennium 1-0, would they have wanted the best of one then? I don't know. So you can look at it either way, but yeah, of course, this is the fairer way. I mean, it's like watching a physical sport and ending the game at half time.
Yeah.
You know, if that was the case for Arsenal on the weekend, I'd have been really, really pissed off because we were 1-0 down at that point, and you need the full amount of time. You know, you could basically have a match over. What if it's a title-deciding match? This match is between Man and Light and Renegades, for example's sake, and the winner goes through to the Challenger Series qualifiers, and it's a surrender at 20. I mean, what a deflated sort of, you know.
Definitely.
That seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm hoping that the finals would be a best of 5, because if even a best of 3.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm hoping. I don't know. It might be a best of 3, but.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
you're right. But you know what I mean. If it was decided to be in the top 4 or something like that, before you got to the finals, I mean that'd be a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it almost feels like. I was talking to Vince about this last episode. I think, was it I-54 possibly? I can't remember which one, where it was FM versus Choke in the finals, and due to a bug they had to basically, well, they didn't have to, but they surrendered because they were playing against a Protect the Cogmore comp, and if they didn't win early, there was just no chance in winning, and they were winning. Like, yes, it was only maybe 2,000 goal difference, which wasn't a lot in the first 20 minutes, but at that 20-minute mark, they basically they had a bug with Morgana where they couldn't see the Q binding, and it ended up with them losing 3 players, and realistically speaking, that just snowballed the entire game. So they surrendered 2 minutes later because there's no point. It was kind of like a rubbish ending to the finals, because that's just how it was. But they were obviously, the players were so annoyed with what happened, and there was no way to say go back in time to before that happened. So.
Yeah, you know. What was that? What was that? Was that last season, that game?
No, it was for I-Series, I-54 or I-53.
Oh, sorry.
I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the I-Series last year, but yeah, it was the finals. It was pretty annoying.
That was a best of 3 though, right?
Yeah, it was a best of 3.
Yeah.
It was just the first. God, I can't even remember now. I think No, so what happened was FM won in their upper bracket, and then Choke went down, and then they came back up. So FM had the weighted best of 3. So then Choke won the second game, I think, and then Choke lost the third game. It was just a surrender because of the bug. So it was just kind of it's 1-1. This is gonna be a really interesting final. The last game's gonna be amazing, and it just went, oh, never mind. The game's over. See you later, guys. Pack your bags up. We're going home.
Yeah, that's one of the annoying things about esports, right? Things could go wrong. It was at Worlds last year. You know, they had a big pause, I think, in the Fnatic match. I can't remember now. The quarterfinals. You know, it happens, you know. Yeah. But that was quite fun, being in the crowd, you know, doing the chants and Mexican waves and other stupid stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
For half an hour.
Really good. I did enjoy that.
Were you there, for the 4 days?
I went Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, but on the Friday, because LoL UK, the group, they had an event at Birmingham, and so I went to Birmingham for the Friday just to experience that, and that was excellent. It was so good. There was 500 people there or something, which was just insane in this bar/pub, and just having people there. And there were a couple of League of Legends celebrities there. I think.
Was that the League UK meetup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there. That was pretty good. I wasn't there for too long, but that was a good laugh. Tom was inebriated. He'd been drinking a little bit. That was good. My first impression of Tom Villiers from Choke. That was good. Hi Tom, if you're watching.
Yeah, he's pretty funny when he's drunk, to be fair. Pretty funny. So I just want to end on a fun question, which I don't know if you've seen it before, but for those who haven't, and maybe yourself as well, if you're going to Mars on a one-way trip, which is what was planned for some people in 2020, if you could take 3 people you've interviewed with you, who would you take and why?
It's really hard. I'll keep it esports focused, just for the nature of the show and
Yeah.
everything. But first up's probably ex-Peke, just because he's just such a nice guy. He's probably one of the nicest guys I've interviewed. Really, really. I can't think of the word. I've been talking for too long. But he's great for esports, right? He's really funny, really nice guy, and if there's internet and PCs and power and stuff on Mars, then he could teach. And he's a really intelligent guy, and you can have a really good chat with him. I think when I interviewed him last year, I chat with him for like 40-50 minutes, which I usually try and keep it to 20-30 minutes, because otherwise you've got so much transcribing to do and it takes so long. If there's anyone out there that just wants to transcribe my interviews, please contact me.
Sorry, the internet just decided to cut out like halfway through that answer. So I mean, we got most of it, but I think we missed your second one because we got Expeke and Snoope, but I didn't hear the other one.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, the second one was Michael O'Dell, or Odie, from Team
Yeah.
Dignitas, because I think he's a sort of older, wiser guy in the industry, and he'd be able to sort of keep us all in check. You know, he manages a really successful organisation. So, yeah, that's it really.
Okay.
Those 3. If I had to choose from esports, if I had to choose outside of esports, I think it'd be pretty hard, because I've done so many interviews over the years. I'd have to really sit down and think long and hard about who I'd take with me. But those 3 definitely from esports.
Cool. So, well then, let's end on one last point. When you transitioned into esports, obviously like creating the website, there's a whole bunch of contacts that you made and people that you met during the creation. Do you have any shout outs to those people that helped you along the way, and any plugs you'd like to make?
Yeah, helped me along the way. My good friend Tom Stratford, who's really good animator. He done the little esports news UK intro on the YouTube videos, so thanks a lot to him. Nick Smith, someone I went to school with years back, he done the little music sting on that. And then really it's just like the scene in general. People have been really welcoming to me. The guys at ESL and all the orgs really have been really welcoming. So yeah, thank you to those guys. I don't want to name too many names because I feel like I'm leaving people out. So I'll keep it general.
Cool. Yeah, you always end up feeling like that. It's like Vince last week, he was like, "Oh, thank to this person, this person, this person,"
Yeah.
and then he forgot that probably the closest person to him, which is Shorty, which is like his co-manager, and he was like, "Oh, oops, sorry."
Obviously Riot as well. Obviously
Yeah.
Riot for making the game and being really for sharing my articles and things like that. I really appreciate that, and for inviting me along to Worlds and things. That's all been brilliant. I'm sure I've missed other people, but
yeah, fair
oh
enough.
well.
Well, thank you for coming on today, Dom. And
Thanks very much.
And thank you to everyone who's tuned in for this episode of Talking Esports. You can follow both me and Dom on Twitter. Our handles are below us. And of course, please follow TCA on social media so you can keep up to date with our schedule for these episodes and anything else that we produce. Next week at 7 o'clock this time, back to the normal schedule, we'll be having Nutri on to discuss his time as a player and his coaching. So thanks you to everyone, and see you all next week.